This program, of course, is presented by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the most widely read, widely sold, and respected wrestling magazine in the world today.
This is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast, episode number 11. I am PWI senior writer Al Castle, joined as always by fellow senior writer Dan Murphy. How are you, Dan?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing, Al?
Good. And we are both joined by yet another PWI senior writer on the show for the first time, Harry Burkett. How are you, Harry?
Very good. Wow, the senior writer edition.
Yeah.
And, you guys are doing a great job. I'm glad to finally be on.
We're going to see the downloads just go through a roof on this one. 3 senior writers at the same time. It's sort of like when Hogan, Rock, and Austin were in the ring together at WrestleMania last year.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Anyway, this is pretty much going to be a one-topic show, as you might expect. We're a few days away from WrestleMania 31, and that's what we're going to be talking about here today, giving our analysis, predictions, talking about the hype, the build, and just overall thoughts on what's supposed to be the biggest wrestling show of the year. I'm not sure if it feels that way this year, but we'll talk more about that. Before we do anything else, I want to get the plugs out of the way so we can go ahead and dig into WrestleMania. This is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast, and Pro Wrestling Illustrated remains the most respected wrestling publication, I'd say, in the world. We've been around for, 36 years, and still doing great work. The latest issue just hit newsstands, I believe. If you're a subscriber, you should have it in your mailbox. You could have downloaded it a couple weeks ago. Features Seth Rollins on the cover, and as always, lots of great features inside. Dan did the annual report cards of all the biggest names in wrestling, and some names that maybe aren't so big. You'll find them low on the list. We always do a pretty big feature headed into WrestleMania. I took care of that this year. We got a fun feature, WrestleMania 1 versus WrestleMania 31. And lots more in there. My interview with Alberto Patron. Dan, you did a great review of the Wrestle Kingdom show in New Japan. And Harry, I was just looking through the content. You're all over the magazine. So, Harry, I want to give to you a bit. I mean, every time somebody's on, I try to get them to give the pitch for why people should be subscribing to Pro Wrestling Illustrated. What do you think about that?
You know, for me, PWI has always been the source that pulls the whole industry together. It's right there, all in one place. You know, I'm traditional. I like the print magazines. There's no pointing or clicking. You know, it's all right there. The ratings page brings the whole wrestling universe down to 2 pages. I like that. And I think what I like most of all is the analysis and the long-form interviews. Like, I loved your interview with Alberto in this issue, and I really like Dan's column on Wrestle Kingdom. Not so much because of the Japanese thing. I love Japanese wrestling, but the take that he had about how this is reminiscent of the early days of the Internet, and we could be on the cusp of something bigger, you know, where all these promotions a lot of people haven't heard of are now available streaming. And that's becoming the standard rather than, you know, the amateur exception. So I think you just get the analysis PWI you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and you touched on a good point. I was just writing my column for the next magazine today, and in the course of one column, I touched on obviously WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, but now we've got Lucha Underground to write about. We've got more New Japan now that they're on American TV as well, NXT, and on and on. And the fun thing, I think, both as a Pro Wrestling Illustrated writer and reader, is that there's so much more to cover, right? I mean, when times have been, I don't know, bad, but when WWE's stranglehold or monopoly has been particularly strong, sometimes it can kind of be monotonous. You know, you pretty much got the one promotion to write about. We've always covered independent wrestling and international wrestling, but now just here stateside, there are, 4 or 5 legitimate national promotions to discuss, to write about, and for subscribers to read about. So definitely a fun time to pick up PWI. Always fun around WrestleMania season. Dan, I imagine you're going to get busy before long on your real winners and losers.
Yeah, that's normally the plan, is looking at WrestleMania, looking at who won the match, describing what happened in the match, the time of the match, all of the official stats but then doing the analysis, like Harry mentioned, of, you've got a winner and a loser, but who's the real winner? Who's the real loser? Who's the person who is left in a better position based on the result of that match than they were going into it? And a lot of times it can be somebody that you haven't really thought of. A real loser could be somebody who otherwise would have been a top contender for a title, but then the title changes hands and now they're kind of back at the bottom of the pecking order. So there's a lot of analysis in that. So that's one of our annual features that we do.
Yeah, since I was a kid, I loved the real winners and losers, and again, since I was just a wee boy, having the latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated with me as I watched WrestleMania was kind of a prerequisite because of all the fun features and coverage. We always try to do content that ties into WrestleMania during WrestleMania season, so you definitely want to pick up the latest issue. And the way to do that, the best way, probably go to PWI-online.com. You can buy the one issue, or makes a lot more sense, go ahead and subscribe. You could get some great values, 6 issues of the print edition for under $21, just $3.50 an issue, half off the cover price. As I said, you could subscribe or download the digital edition for an even deeper discount and get it a lot faster. You get 6 issues of the digital edition for just $14.99. Like I said, you can do all that on PWI-online.com. You can also go ahead and follow us on Twitter @officialPWI. Definitely subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. Drop us a line here, PWI podcast @outlook.com. And that'll about do it. Don't want to spend too much on the plugs because we've got WrestleMania to talk about. So why don't we go ahead and, why don't we start in general, kind of get your guys' takes on the overall build, the overall mood. I touched upon it as we started the show. I certainly don't feel like this WrestleMania season stands up to some of the past. Certainly kind of an underwhelming hype, underwhelming card, I think. And it's not just being a naysayer fan. I think I even feel it on their behalf. Something about their build and the way they're promoting even feels like they kind of realize they didn't hit a home run this year. Not that the show itself won't be executed well. I imagine, we'll probably get on the high end of expectations for all the matches. But just overall, something's definitely missing this year. What do you think, Harry?
It seemed to me that a lot of the final matches weren't settled until the past 2 weeks, like, the Intercontinental title ladder match and what was the other one? Undertaker, Bray Wyatt. I know Bray Wyatt had that challenge out there, but you didn't really know, if Undertaker was going to accept. To me, the only thing that resonates as special this year has to be the appearance of Sting. And I'm so excited to see Sting and see what's going to happen, but realistically, I'm thinking he is 55 years old. This isn't even like a
he's 56 today.
49-year-old Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18, and that has me concerned that this just seems it's like even my picks that I'm going to warn you guys, I'm picking the conservative picks. I'm not really taking a chance here because WWE these days is pretty conventional. And I just had the feeling this WrestleMania will be conventional as well.
Yeah, by the books, yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Dan? What's your take on just kind of the overall build this year?
Well, I agree with everything the two of you have said. My fear is that this may be the first WrestleMania, really, of the WWE Network era.
Yeah.
And the idea being that previously, up until now, over the past 30 years, they had to sell WrestleMania. This was the event where everybody got paid. This is the big money event. It was the high price tag, the high pay-per-view, and everybody, it took time and effort to kind of build and sell this event. Now it's just another pay-per-view that you get for $9.99 a month, and it doesn't really matter as much. So maybe the fans aren't as excited about this WrestleMania as they have been for ones in the past. It doesn't matter. WWE's got their network. They've got their subscriber base. That's the model they're shifting to, and that's my fear, is that this is the what WrestleManias are set to become. Or by the book, hey, it's another pay-per-view, and this is what we're doing, and it'll probably be a great show, but it doesn't have that build and momentum that has been a hallmark of WrestleMania for the past 30 years.
Yeah, I've heard of that theory also. The idea this is the network WrestleMania, so maybe they're not as motivated to sell it as in other years. That might be a factor, but I really just think this is a product of a lot of bad decisions and also bad breaks. I mean, I think when you talk about Daniel Bryan's injury keeping him out for so long, Roman Reigns' injury hurting his push, there are a lot of things that just didn't go WWE's way. But then there are things that were absolutely under their control. The decision to end the streak last year, this year Undertaker's back and the match just doesn't feel as important. A lot of missteps in the handling of Roman Reigns really hurts the main event because the guy just simply is not as over as he needs to be for the main event of WrestleMania, and on and on. So let's go ahead and start with the alleged main event for the WWE Championship, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Harry touched on it, and I think I'm going the same way. I think a lot of these picks that I'm going to do are going to be pretty conservative. On one hand, I know that WWE is going to have to pull out something big to make this show feel special, but it's hard to figure out where they're going to do that, where they're going to pick their spots to pull out something big. This could be where they do it. Some people are predicting all kinds of stuff, double turns. Does Reigns turn and align himself with Heyman? Does Lesnar turn babyface? Certainly there's some things that have happened the last several weeks that feel like they could be the seeds to that kind of thing. Seth Rollins is out there with the briefcase. Does that factor into the end of the match? There's all kinds of ways that this could go. And because the hype and the build has been somewhat underwhelming, you almost feel like they got to do something special. But that said, I still think that their top priority and kind of stubbornly is going to be to get Roman Reigns over as the new guy. To that end, I expect him to beat Brock Lesnar. I wouldn't bet the house on it, but I think it's still the most likely scenario. As far as the match, I think, they give him 11 minutes, 12 minutes. I don't know that they could be trusted with much more. Lesnar's great at what he does, but also has shined with a certain kind of opponent. I think since his comeback in 2012, this is probably going to be as weak as an opponent as he had, and that includes guys like Big Show, who you don't think of as great workers, but are at least veterans and know the shortcuts and the tricks in there. And more times than not, Brock has been able to lean on his dance partner in the ring. I think this time he's going to be the one taking the lead. And so, more than anything, I think that's where a lot of the intrigue is in this match, is how it's executed. So that's my take. How about you, Harry?
Well, like a lot of other people, I'm surprised that this didn't become a three-way involving Lesnar, Reigns, and Daniel Bryan. But Reigns definitely has the inevitability factor going for him. It kind of reminds me of Shawn Michaels going into WrestleMania 12 against Bret Hart, or Steve Austin against Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 14. There's now an expectation that Reigns has got to win, because the shocker here would be if Lesnar retained against Reigns. Because if Reigns loses, I just feel like he would be crushed and labeled as a choker. You'd be comparing him to the Lex Express of '93. So we're almost painted into a corner here where Reigns has to win. The only other thing that could happen, Daniel Bryan could do something to screw him over, but fans' sympathy would be with Bryan. So what kind of mess would that result in? And it looks like to me they're burying Bryan already, just from SmackDown last night, losing to Dolph Ziggler, and he's in the Intercontinental title match. So I think I have to go with my conservative pick, Reigns winning.
Yep, I'm with you. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, you guys both make a lot of sense, and that is the conservative move, is Roman Reigns winning the title. I mean, that was the story from Survivor Series maybe or so. Like, once you began to realize that that Reigns was on the march and he won that Slammy for Superstar of the Year, like the hype machine was behind Roman Reigns and he's going for it, and I think it. Well, I expect him to win. I expect him to win the title at WrestleMania, and I expect WrestleMania to have that flat ending, where Roman Reigns is celebrating. There's not really the applause. People are kind of heading for the exits, kind of like when Triple H went over on Randy Orton a few years back.
Yeah,
it just felt like a foregone conclusion, And I think that's really what this is. I think that right now this WrestleMania is kind of I hate to say it, but a foregone conclusion. Like, this is the end of the plan, and what they do as of the night after WrestleMania is going to be a little bit more interesting. And again, not to kind of beat a dead horse to the point about the network, but I do think that if this had been a couple of years ago, before they had the network, and they were trying to convince people to pay $49.95 or $59 or $69 or whatever the case may be, they may have called an audible and done something to change this up to give it a little bit more of that dynamic. They haven't, and I think that they're just going to kind of plod forward with what they've got in mind, and that's Roman Reigns over Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Stu Sachs, our publisher, picks Lesnar for this match. Contributing writer Kevin McElvaney has got Reigns. Mike Bessler, another contributing writer, has got Lesnar. And Louis D's got Reigns. Then Seth Rollins cashing in. Which, certainly conceivable, again, in as much as you'd think they'd be looking for something big. You know, there's a way to kind of have your cake and eat it, too. You could close the show with this match and still leave with a major event, with a pop, with fans feeling like they saw something special if Rollins cashes in. But again, that just makes you wonder, what was it all for? You know,
yeah, but then that's a matter of the authority wins in the end. And
yeah.
The point is that at WrestleMania, like, that's the culmination of storylines. The bad guys get their comeuppance. You know,
yeah.
It's basic storytelling. And if they do something where the handpicked guy of it would just be like SummerSlam a couple of years ago, where Bryan finally won the title and Triple H screwed him out of it, and in those kind of cheap wins by heel factions just ruins everything. It ruins the entire build-up and the anticipation for it. So I really think, if anything, they'll tease it maybe, but go for it the Monday night, you know, the night afterwards.
Yeah.
But I don't see them doing it at Mania.
Yeah, history's shown that generally they like to send the fans home happy at WrestleMania. This one's weird, though, because I don't know if Roman Reigns winning does that. You know, this is, again, a strange situation where if the babyface wins at the end of the night, fans aren't necessarily happy. It's not necessarily the happy ending, and I bet you'd get a louder pop if Rollins did cash in. But, again, do you want to cater to that type of fan? I don't know. Let's move on to our next match, what I think is probably the next biggest match as far as billing and hype. Triple H and Sting. You know, we just touched on it. There's at least a possibility that this goes on last. I think Sting is probably more sentimental favorite, a babyface, more over as a babyface than just about anybody on the show, just because of the novelty of him never having been in WWE. And also, I think he's done well in the small doses that we've seen him in the last few months. But, you know, as we saw back in the Nitro era, Sting's at his best when he's just kind of quiet and brooding, and I think WWE's been able to capture that better than TNA did in all the years he was there. So, yeah, and Triple H, for all the criticism and all his flaws, when he's part of something that he can really sink his teeth into, a WrestleMania program, something like that, he brings his A game. I'm not crazy about the direction they took this storyline, essentially WWE versus WCW. I don't know how many people are sentimental or sympathetic to WCW in 2015. I would have liked if this was really about Sting targeting the Authority and wanting to vanquish WWE of the Authority, that kind of thing. If those stakes were attached to this match, I think it would have helped it a little bit. But as it is, you know, it certainly feels like a WrestleMania-worthy attraction. I think Triple H is going to work hard here and is going to be motivated to get a really good match out of Sting. Sting, for all his problems, always worked super, super hard. I'm somewhat excited about this. I assume Sting wins. I mean, I can't imagine Sting's first ever, possibly only match in WWE on the WrestleMania stage, and he gets beaten, whatever the circumstances, however wacky with the Authority and interference. I just can't see it. To me, you got to do the happy ending in this match, and I think Sting just makes him tap the Scorpion Deathlock. How about you, Harry?
Well, I'm thinking Triple H has to love facing Sting because it makes him seem young and virile in comparison. But I think this will exceed expectations because these two are professionals in every way, like you've alluded to. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sting has been spending 40 hours a week with a private trainer, and the same with Triple H. I think they're going to be ready for it. To me, obviously, yeah, Sting's got to win, but where does it go from here, and what role will he have in WWE? It'll be interesting to see how this moves forward after this match. I guess I'm a little bit fuzzy on what this all means, kind of to your point of there not being direct stakes, and, what kind of power does Sting have? Is he on the board of directors? Some of this needs to be cleared up for me from a common sense point of view.
Yeah. How about you, Dan? What are you looking forward to in this match?
It to be over. No, I think what'll happen, I think there'll be a great intro. Sting coming out to the ring for WrestleMania is going to be one of those magical moments. Triple H, I'm sure, is going to have an even more ridiculous get-up and entourage than he had last year. And they're going to get in the ring. They're two old men, and I think that they're immediately going to start brawling outside the ring and having copious outside interference to overcome the fact and kind of hide the fact that they're guys in their 40s and 50s. And it'll be like the Hogan or the Bret Hart Vince McMahon match. It'll be like the last Triple H Undertaker match, which I know some people liked, but I thought was just awful.
I love that match.
A lot of outside the ring, waste time, hit, here's a chair shot, let's go through a couple tables, let's spare no expense. Here's Big Show interfering, here's Kane interfering. Somehow Sting hits a Scorpion Death Drop. I don't see the Scorpion Death Lock, number one, because in WWE that's so associated with Bret Hart as a sharpshooter. And number two, Triple H I can't see ever submitting because Triple H doesn't tap out. So it'll be a schmoz that will lead to a pinfall, and it'll be an overbooked kind of disaster.
Well, you're really down on it, a lot more than I am. I mean,
yeah. And again, there'll be a great moment for the entrance. Like, it'll be great that moment. But when the bell rings and you have to realize that these guys actually have to work a match,